Today, I'm going to be showcasing someone that is definitely one of my top 5 favorite champions inside Raid Shadow Legends, and as you could probably see from the thumbnail, that is going to be Night Queen Crixia. Now, importantly, even if you don't have this particular champion, I would still recommend watching the video, because first of all, it helps the channel, of course, so thank you, but also because you're going to see how a late game player is going to build Night Queen Crixia specifically for a PvP environment. So you're going to get an idea about what sort of thought process goes into the builds with this particular champion, which is going to help you build champions similar yourself. So for example, Fabian, Armands, those sorts of options, as well as figuring out ways to counter Crixia, what sort of stats people are going to be building her with, and all those sorts of good things to get, you know, effectively counter her inside the live arena, tag team arena, and classic arena, of course. Now, that being said, if you want to go ahead and support the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Of course, there's a join option down below there too if you want to get in on the channel memberships. But let's go ahead and hop straight into it. What makes Crixia so special? Well, she is an A1, attacks one enemy 2 times, each hit having a 50% chance of increasing the duration of all debuffs on the target by 1 turn. So this is pretty insane for an A1. A2 places the big version of decreased resistance and block buffs debuff on all enemies for 2 turns, and decreases each target's turn meter by 20%. Also pretty insane, but this is where she gets really crazy. Deathly Apparition AoE removes all buffs from all enemies. Also increases the cooldowns of all enemy skills by 3 turns. This skill cannot have its cooldown reset or reduced by other skills. So, essentially, she's like the pay-to-win version of somebody like a Fabian. She's also very similar in practice to somebody like a Yumiko, right? In her form 1 at least, apart from the fact that she cannot be reset. She has a passive though, Shadow Vigil. She's immune to stun, and she's going to increase her accuracy by 1 for every 2 resistance she has. So in my particular build, you can see that she has over 500 resistance, so she's going to be getting an additional 250 accuracy, which is pretty insane. So essentially, the more accuracy you want on her, let's put it this way, the more resistance you build her with, the more accuracy she's going to have, which is always a fun and interesting way to build champions. Very much like a Mithrala, but the inverse of it, right? So very, very cool mechanic there. Let's go ahead and hop over to her form 2. A1, Blade Wing, attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 60% chance when booked of decreasing the duration of all debuffs on a random ally by 1 turn. So in some cases, this is going to be the equivalent of a cleanse. So for example, if you have a stun, sleeps, provokes, petrifications, those sorts of things, it's going to be a cleanse, right? If it procs. A2, Reign of Damnation AoE, placing a block debuffs and an increased resistance on all allies for 2 turns, filling the turn meter of all allies by 20%. So very much so far you can see she's kind of the inverse on her second form as her first form, right? Which does continue in her A3, so removes all debuffs from all allies, then decreases the cooldown of all ally skills except this champion's by 3 turns. So just to put into perspective how crazy she is, let's take a look at her passive real quick. She's immune to sleep in this form, increases her speed by 1 for every 10 resistance she has, so she's going to get an extra 50 speed in form 2, essentially with the build I have her in. Now let's think about how crazy this is, right? So she is a cooldown increasing champion. She is a buff removal champion. She is a buff blocking champion. She is a debuff extending champion. She's a decrease resistance champion. Then on her form 2, she's a cleanser, she's a cooldown reset, she's a block debuffs, she's a pseudo cleanser again on her A1, and she's an increased resistance champion. Crixia is absolutely still one of the best champions in the entire game, and she doesn't get as much love as I think she deserves in the content creation scene. When people are talking about crazy mythicals, they're always talking about like Galathier and Nice and champions like that, right? And Gizmak and all those sorts of good things, but they don't really talk too much about Crixia, so I wanted to show her some love today. So she also has an aura of resistance in all battles by 80, which is very useful. Here's the build we have on her. So 347 on the speed, and then 504 on the resistance, 221 on the accuracy. Now, importantly, I do have her built out inside a 4-piece supersonic, as well as a 3-piece pinpoint. So what this is going to do, it's going to give us some speed bonuses, of course, from the supersonic, but more importantly, she's going to boost her own turn meter by 2% every time the enemy team receives a buff. So my Fabian is built the same. My Fabian is actually at 346. And you've seen, if you've watched some of my live arena videos, that he's able to cut in on CFs that are well in excess of 400 speed, right? So same kind of thing we're going with the Crixia here. Now, she's also very, very good for countering a Lockout champion. So if you're going against a Fabian, or if you're going against a Warlord, a Basher, those sorts of champions, she's perfect for countering that, because cooldown increasing does not stop mythical champions from metamorphing. So she can metamorph over into her form 2, and then just pop her reset, and you have all your skills back. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at masteries as well. The way I have her built is coming down here to Unshakable. This is the best mastery in my opinion. You could also technically go Eagle Eye, but I mean, Unshakable is just better. I have her in Retribution, so she has a chance to counterattack. She also has Cycle of Revenge, so she has a chance of increasing her turn meter when ally attack with a critical hit. Now, a couple other things to mention about the build. With my Fabian, you'll see that he's actually in a 4-piece Stone Skin as well as a 5-piece Supersonic. I do think this is the superior build. I mainly run Fabian, and Crixia is just kind of a nice counter pick to have against an enemy Lockout. If I was mainly running Crixia, and for me it's based upon Awakenings essentially, because I have a very good Awakening on my Fabian right now, which allows me to push some extra stats on him. So that's good, but if I had a good Awakening for my Crixia, the one where I get the accuracy and the resistance, or, you know, even the speed, so if I had her 5 or 6 star, I would run her as a main Lockout champion, and then I'd put her into Stone Skin as well, because the one area that she's really going to struggle is if you're going against somebody like a Hegemon, or if you're just going against somebody who's faster and you don't get to win that speed race. So you're really depending on her Supersonic to help you cut in. If you want to build her slower and inside Stone Skin, I would say you could even take a look at taking off the Supersonic, perhaps putting her in 2 turns of Stone Skin or something along those lines. Another great call out though is that the Righteous set is absolutely god tier on her, so the 10% speed and then the 40 resistance is very, very strong. Let's go ahead and take a look at relics. So for relics, I would ultimately recommend having Wand of Submission on her. I have Wand of Submission on my Marichka as well as my Harima. It's the only wands that I have on my account currently. I would say that's probably going to be one of the best in-slot relics for her, though, just to help, you know, throw back any sort of debuffs that might be coming her way. Not to mention that you also get the extra speed on there as well as accuracy, right? So it's kind of a win-win. If you don't have Wand of Submission, you could easily run her in the Journal of Necrodos, because she does have turn meter fill on her secondary form. Apart from that, you could also, you know, just run her in any sort of a disruption relic, essentially. So there's this one relic here. So the Perched Shadow, wearer has a 10% chance to receive an extra turn when using their default skill if at least one active skill is on cooldown. So this could be very good for cycling through her kit. You know, it just adds a little bit of randomness. And when it's leveled up to 15, you do get the extra bump of speed on there as well. Right now, I just have her in the Tempest Sanguinius so that I can get the extra turn meter reduction by 15% on her A2 in Form 1. In terms of books, she definitely needs books. Her Lockout ignores resistance, and it's on a 4-turn cooldown when it's booked. It's on a 5-turn cooldown if it's not booked, which means that you're going to struggle to really cycle. In terms of book priority, I would definitely recommend booking the Form 1 prior to the Form 2, in my opinion, at least. As you can see from the reviews, though, people absolutely love her. So that being said, let's go ahead and see if we can't run her in some arena-related content here. This is pretty much the ideal team that we would want to run her in. So a Sifi on the other team. I don't know how fast this team is going to be based on the power of them. I imagine probably not that fast. But we shall see. We shall see. If they're faster and the Sifi buffs up, this will be a perfect showcase for my Crixia. Unfortunately, it is not even close. I'm honestly just going to go ahead and back out. Give this guy the free win. It's a level 100 account with 13 million player power and god-awfully slow champions. It is what it is. We're kind of in mid to low tier gold 5 here, so the chances of us actually finding good teams to go against are probably going to be pretty low. Especially at the top of the page, but I can't really seem... Here we go. Something like this might work well. Let's hope this team's a little bit faster. We do actually have a Lord Shazar in here. Might help them to be a bit quicker. Not even close, apparently. I don't know what's going on. For Gold 5, my build is not that crazy, guys. I don't know why I don't know why there's no speed here. They might have honestly just unequipped the gear on these champions too for, like, you know, Hydra or something like that is very possible. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. We could run it against a team like this. I think all these teams are going to be slow, though. That's the part that kind of sucks. Let's see. Something like this. Something like this looks a little bit more juicy. So let's try this. The only thing I'm concerned about is that if their Armands goes before us and then places the stun, of course, she's not inside Stone Skin, so we're not going to be able to do anything about that. Now, the Sifi does buff up there. Armands does get a turn. Wand of Submission comes in, activates on the Armands. Now, we are going to go ahead and switch forms here, even though we'll get whacked by the Marius. That's not fine, as a matter of fact. Now we have a 2 turns of Enfeeble on our Taurus, which is just flat out annoying. You can kind of see what we're going for, though, right? So, realistically, we would probably want to bring in some other champions for this. We don't really need UDK in there. Let's see if we can try to make this happen again. So, let's go ahead and take out UDK. We're going to bring in Carnage, and then we'll use him as the damage dealer. So we're going to bring in my Sun Wukong doesn't even have gear, but we are going to go ahead and switch the gear over to him real quick just for the showcase here. So we're going to do preset manager, Wukong, take the gear off Thor, bring it back over to him. There we go. And then we're going to bring in our Sun Wukong as well, just so we can get the intimidating presence on there. He's one of only like 2 champions I have intimidating presence on. So now we have a good speed aura, and that should help to make all the difference. And there we go. So now Crixia cuts in. You can really see that Supersonic just making the absolute best out of it. And then, of course, she's going to be able to lock the Marius as well as the Fabian, remove the buffs from everybody. We don't get Wand of Submission to proc that time, so the Armands is able to, unfortunately, place some nasties on us. But that being said, we do now have Sun Wukong, who was able to steal some buffs. We didn't get locked out yet by the Fabian, so he's probably going to do that soon, though I don't know what he's waiting for. Our Carnage sits down. Unfortunately, I don't have a very good build on Carnage right now, and we do get the turn meter stolen by the Armands. So, unfortunately, just considering that we don't have the survivability here yet, let's try that one more time, maybe against a different Sifi team. It works, guys. I swear, it works. You can really see the theory crafting behind it. Let's try a team like this. We'll keep the Carnage coming in, and then we'll just bring a Harima, maybe. No, let's bring a Taurus. I'm not necessarily expecting to win this fight. When I do showcases like this inside my videos, I'm not always going for the win rate. I'm essentially just showing the theory behind the teams, because at the end of the day, everybody's account is going to be such a vastly different stage, right? So whatever's working on my account currently just simply might not work for your account, right? And that's perfectly okay. So we're going to go ahead and do this on the Sifi there, take her turn meter. Got the block active skills on the Harima as well, which is quite nice. The only thing that's annoying is Harima's passive, where the Carnage won't be able to crit hit, but we go ahead and remedy that by clapping the Harima. Go ahead and get the decreased resistance as well as block buffs out there. That way UDK's heals and all that stuff don't go on the rest of them. And then, of course, we do get the consistent counterattacks coming in from the Carnage as well. So, you know, definitely a very good team. Now, what we'll do here, we'll go ahead and metamorph, and then we'll go ahead and reset with Crixia. So now everybody's going to have their cooldowns available. We'll go ahead and nuke again with the Taurus, right? We do get a hit coming in there from the UDK, which is kind of annoying. Then we'll go ahead and just whack into the Duchess here, steal her turn meter, put a block actives on her. I meant to place the block debuffs on us, but that's okay, I suppose. Now, you can see my Carnage is definitely not hitting too crazy hard. I've shown my Carnage build on the channel before, and he's not really built out too well, because he doesn't even have like a crit damage amulet or anything like that, but you can really just see how effective a team like this is just cycling through, right? So there we go. We don't even kill the Duchess there. That's absolutely crazy. That is bonkers, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely bonkers. We're going to go ahead, metamorph over here again, though. Going to go ahead and increase their cooldowns, rather. Go ahead and whack the UDK around a little bit. Go ahead and whack them around again with the Marichka A1 pulling some people in. Don't even kill them, though. This is actually a pretty tanky team. I got to give them some credit. But there we go. You really see how useful Crixia is for situations like this. And not to mention, she has been such an immense help inside the Knights Revenant Faction Wars crypt, as I'm sure you can probably imagine, right? She's one of the best mythicals in the entire game. No shit, she's going to be pretty good in that content. So, that being said, I think that's probably going to finish it. There is a targeted summoning boost right now for the mythical champion that just came out, but I'm not too excited to get her, so I am just going to hold off because we have some events and tournaments and stuff like that coming up that I'd rather participate in to try and get the souls for our new Thorin here, I think his name is, the fusion that just completed. Let me know how the fusion went for you guys when you see this. This video is going to be coming out probably a couple of weeks after you see it, but hey, you know, the content is still going to be here, right? So I have myself a lot of the way to the 3-star soul at the moment, so we're making very good progress there, and then probably going to try and go for the 5-star soul. Now, the thing I didn't like is that they've split this, because it used to be like a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5-star soul, so you could get yourself to like a 4-star or something like that if you needed, but now they made it so that, you know, you got to go all the way if you're trying to get to that 5-star soul, which is a bit of a shame. But as always, though, thank you guys all so much for watching. I'll see you next time.